Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Verdict. We're going to have another show with an old friend that we're welcoming back, and she's saying goodbye to this stage of her life, but I know we're going to ask her to reminisce on some very fond memories.
Well, indeed. We entitled this show Thanks for the Memories, and that old Bob Hope theme song, but that really is what we're going to do, is thank her for the very, very large number of good memories she's given to a lot of us.
Sherri Coale is our guest for many, many years, the head women's basketball coach at the University of Oklahoma. We'll be back with Sherri Coale right after this. Stay with us. You're watching The Verdict.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Soccer has been such an important part of my life. It's been my life for 18 years. It was an amazing experience to be a part of the Big 12 championship team in 2017 with the OSU Cowgirls. And looking back, it's one of the best things that has happened to me. I'm Lana Duke, I'm a medical student, and I'm Chickasaw. There is a need for physicians in rural and underserved areas of Oklahoma, and that's where my heart is. I definitely want to stay here and practice in Oklahoma and give back to the community that has given me so much. And I want to make my family proud, and Chickasaws proud too, and ultimately make other people have healthier, happier lives is what I really set out to do.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Hello and welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Well, Thanks for the Memories, as I said, is the name of this show. And we are really pleased to welcome back for her 5th visit, and we really hope not her last, Sherri Coale, the recently retired head women's basketball coach at the University of Oklahoma. She entered her 25th year as head coach, setting many, many records in the process. I'm only going to talk about a few because if I would list all the records that she has set, we wouldn't have any time to talk to her, and we do want to reserve some time for that. But just a few things I want to point out to you. She had 513 wins in her career. She won 10 Big 12 championships, 20 postseason appearances. She has been inducted into the Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, and had terrific success in USA Basketball, winning a gold medal as head coach of the team in Russia. Sherri has been a wonderful ambassador for the state of Oklahoma and for Norman, Oklahoma, and the University of Oklahoma. Sherri, we are really glad that you'd give us time to come talk to us about your life, your career, and what's going on.
Thank you, Kent. And Mick, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
When I think back to what you must have seen as first a player and then as a coach, I mean, you've really spanned the eras of girls/women's basketball. I assume you were playing, maybe it was middle school or high school, you were playing the 6-on-6 variety at one time, I'm guessing. Am I right?
You're really telling everybody exactly how old I am right now. Thank you for nothing. No, I had the grand privilege of being able to play both 6-on-6 and 5-on-5. I grew up playing 6-on-6, graduated from Hilton High School in 1983, and then went to college and had to figure out how to play 5-on-5. And I did so by playing pickup ball with the boys team at Norman High School, and then playing all summer at Oklahoma Christian, just trying to figure out mostly how to guard, because I was an offensive player in high school and had to figure out how to defend people.
And it's lost to history now almost, but the NCAA wasn't really involved in organized women's athletics until around 1980. So, I mean, there existed college basketball before that time period, but it wasn't NCAA basketball. So really, you've seen the infancy of the NCAA getting involved in women's sports.
You know, Mick, I was just talking to another colleague earlier today about the wave of women's basketball, that the era that I was so blessed to coach in here at the University of Oklahoma. I feel almost like a surfer that just caught the right wave. I was hired at Oklahoma right before women's basketball exploded. Our first year in the Big 12 Conference, we had a television contract that assured us, excuse me, that we would have one home televised game and one on the road televised game. And we thought we had died and gone to heaven. Now, 25 years later, everybody's games are televised. Almost all of our games are televised. So I've been fortunate to be involved in this sport during a period of incredible growth and a platform that's expanded, and it's been a fun ride.
Well, reflect back on your days coming out of Oklahoma Christian University, which, by the way, I don't know whether you know it or not, but they are kind enough to provide us with the studio from which we're taping this very show. But it's the campus that you're familiar with, I'm sure. You came out of Oklahoma Christian University as a guard, and then 9 years later, you were taking over the program at the University of Oklahoma as head coach. That's pretty fast acceleration in progress.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. Right place, right time, around the right people. I always go back to the experience that I gained at Oklahoma Christian as foundational in providing me with the information and the scope that I needed when I had an opportunity to pursue this job. From Oklahoma Christian, I learned from Dan Hayes, who was the men's coach there, how to build a program from the ground up, because I was a freshman at OC when he came in, and so there were so many parallels there. I used to sit on the floor on the side of the court during his practice after our practice was over and take notes. And I've often said that when I got the head job at Norman High School, that drill box or that box of note cards that I took sitting on Coach Hayes' floor really was the blueprint for Norman High School. And then I was able to use Norman High's blueprint to turn the program here at the University of Oklahoma. So I've been very, very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, around the right people that help prepare me to be ready for this opportunity.
When you were teaching those girls at Norman High School, were the fundamentals different than what the fundamentals are today, or are the fundamentals unchanged?
You know, Mick, that's a great question. I think the game has changed profoundly, but the fundamentals will always be the most important part of the game. And those things, the way you teach them maybe changes a little bit. The terminology maybe changes a little bit, maybe even the prioritization of this one over that one. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to dribble, pass, catch, and shoot if you want to be an effective basketball player. And so you work on those things every single day, regardless of the level. And
at Norman High, you pretty much took the kids that enrolled at Norman High. But when you got to the University of Oklahoma, you had to go out and find your players. And the University of Oklahoma didn't have a great tradition of women's basketball when you took over. So how did you sell it to some of the most accomplished high school players around the country?
Well, I think first and foremost, I believed in what this program could become when you're at a place like this, an institution of this stature that has such athletic success, albeit it wasn't in women's basketball necessarily, but in other sports, obviously. You can sell that. I think the brand itself gets you in some doors. But early on, to be quite honest, we had to kind of go away when we tried to recruit around a geographic circle. Kids wanted to have a chance to go to the Final Four right away, and they didn't know that 4 years would be enough time. And so we'd get really close on kids who would go just beyond the geographic radius to somewhere else. So we went a little bit further away and found some people. And I got lucky. Guys, I got so lucky. Felicia Whaley was my first signee. Felicia Whaley is one of the best basketball players I've ever coached in 25 years. And she was available in April, the year I got hired. So a couple weeks after I got hired, she's still available. Just a God thing that she's out there and we can sign her to come to Oklahoma. And we built on her. I took Felicia Whaley's presence, although I didn't take her physically. I took her presence with me to Brockville, Ontario, Canada, to lure a kid named Stacey Dales to come and be her teammate. And so I guess we kind of did it the old herbal essence way, tell two friends and they'll tell two friends and so on and so on. And suddenly we had a squad.
Well, talk to us about a few of the most gratifying moments you can recall during your 25-year career.
Such a tough question. It's like asking somebody to, tell them which one of their children is their favorite. It's just really, really hard to pick things out. Obviously, the first time you go to the Final Four, remember exactly where we were, what it felt like, who was on the court, what the situation was like. You remember all of that. After we won, it was deep in the morning. I want to say 2 a.m. by the time we finished the press conference, cut down the nets, got on the bus. We were in Boise to head back home to Oklahoma. And as soon as I got on the bus, the first phone call I made was to Felicia Whaley. She was no longer on the team, obviously, had graduated 2 years earlier, but she was the reason that we were in that position. And I called her to tell her that and to say thank you and to tell her that she had a ticket to the Final Four. All she had to do was show up. So that was one of those moments where it just kind of all made sense and you're able to reward the people who deserve it the most. In 2010, we went back to the Final Four after going in 2009, and the Paris sisters graduated, and we were picked to finish middle of the league in our conference, and we ended up that team going to the Final Four that year when nobody thought that we could or would. That was gratifying. I think it's always gratifying to do things that people don't think you can do. And so in many ways, what we did this season with the players that we had in the situation that we found ourselves in due to COVID and some untimely injuries with our squad, we played basically the entire year with 6 or 7 players. And some of those victories this year and the way our kids responded to adversity and the maturity with which they pivoted and made the best of every situation, that's gratifying too. So I've got a bunch of them, and that's maybe the high points right there.
Sherri Coale is the retiring head women's basketball coach at Oklahoma. Kent and I'll be back with Sherri for more after this.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma. And half of those are still unaware of their benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers and our guest, Sherri Coale. Kent?
Sherri, getting ready for this show, I looked at some information about you that I was able to dig up, and your office was kind enough to send. But one of the things that jumped out at me is the virtually outstanding academic record and GPA that your team's achieved over the years. And just how important did you think academics should be in the nurturing of a player?
Well, Kent, I have always been a teacher first. That's my background, a high school teacher and coach, and I believe in the educational system, and I believe in higher education and the amateurization of collegiate sports. That's what this is. So the education piece comes first, although it's sometimes hard to convince players of that or families of that or fans of that, but that's why you come to an institution, is to get an education that can help you become the best version of yourself, and you can go out and make a difference in the world. Playing basketball is how you get that paid for. If you're a scholarship athlete, and it's maybe following your passion, but your number one priority is to get a degree, and a degree that means something. And I think that probably, guys, is what I've prided myself on, and our staffs have prided themselves on through the years, is that not only did we make sure that our players got degrees, but we really pressed them to get degrees that mattered to them, to not just settle for a piece of paper that says, I finished 4 years of college, now I don't know what to do next, but to go pursue something that makes their heart sing. And sometimes that meant having weird practice time so that we could accommodate academic schedules. Sometimes it meant that players were spending a lot of time on planes and buses with little book lights on, studying in the back, controlled study hall when we're on the road. But those environments were rich, and I think players sort of bled into one another. There was such an environment, especially through that span of the early 2000s. We just had such high achieving kids in our midst that you couldn't come in and be a part of our team and not feel compelled to dig in and study and try to do the best that you could possibly do in the classroom. That's just what the culture was, because that's how the players themselves handled themselves every single day and what they felt was important.
The facilities at the University of Oklahoma, as it pertains to your program, improved through the years too, as well as the living quarters of your scholarship athletes. Talk about the improvements that you were able to make in the program, not just the team's win and loss record, but the program in general is in a much better position now than it was when you took over.
From a facility standpoint, without question, Mary Jane Noble led that charge when we built our practice gym, our team facilities. It was ready to move into in 2002, which I always think is ironic, because everybody thinks that we went to the Final Four and then they built us this palace. That's not true. We moved into the Lloyd Noble Center when we got back from the Final Four in 2002. So that meant the money had been committed, the vision had been laid years before that. And so I obviously have to credit Joe Castiglione for the vision for that facility, and then Mary Jane Noble and the Noble Foundation for the significant gift of $8.2 million that allowed us to be able to create the women's side, and then the men's side, obviously, for the same price tag. So we have a basketball facility that is just second to none. And it was really one of the first for a BCS level school to have a men's and women's practice gym that was so equal, so fantastic, and so logistically perfectly located to the main floor. A lot of places had something, but it was off campus or across campus or away from their gym, and ours is all just within walking distance in under the same roof. So amazing. Since then, due to the generosity of Blake Griffin and his family, we have the Griffin Performance Center, which is an amazing physical fitness, weightlifting, training, rehabilitation center that is definitely the bar for basketball programs across the country. And then, oh, by the way, a few years ago, Tim Headington's generosity allowed us to have a Headington Hall, which is where athletes live. And I'll tell you guys a quick story. Early on, I'm going to say the first maybe 10 years that we recruited kids to come to Oklahoma, we would do itineraries for a campus tour, and we would take them all around campus. We would show them the football stadium, we would show them the Bizzell Library and the great reading room, and we would take them across our campus, and we would show them Lloyd Noble Center, and we would run out of time before we got to that dorm. We'd have to get them to that airport every single time. These days, our campus tour itinerary started with Headington Hall. We're going there first, the place where you have your own bathroom and your countertops are granite. We sold the mess out of that one. So it's been really fun to see what opportunities from a facility standpoint are afforded our female athletes now.
Sherri, if you can, talk about 2 or 3 of your best teams ever. I know you don't want to talk about one, but talk about some of your best teams ever.
Well, certainly that 2002 team, I think, is the best team to ever play at the University of Oklahoma. We were defeated in the national championship game by Connecticut, and that, Gino will tell you, is the best team that he has ever coached. And so I think that pretty much...
That's a high standard.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They were, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Swing Cash, Tamika Williams, they were just loaded. And we had a stellar cast ourselves: Stacey Dales, Lanisha Caulfield, Kaiten Hill, Shannon Selman, Jamie Talbert, Rosalind Ross. It was a fantastic national championship game. And that season was a beautiful season to be a part of, partly because it was the culmination of 4 years of building. We got to the NIT, and then we got to the Sweet 16 twice, and then that championship level season, that fourth year for those seniors, that senior class of 6. It was exciting because of that, but I talk about it now more because of the purity with which we played. We were efficient, we were connected, there was selflessness, a really high basketball IQ on that team, a really tough, competitive team that could fight physically as well as mentally and emotionally throughout a 40-minute game. And it's interesting. As I walked out of the Alamo Dome to get on the bus to leave after that championship game, Gino yelled at me and motioned, and I walked back, and he said, "I just want you to remember something. You're really young, and you're going to think that this is a really easy thing to do because you're here. And you're really young, and you're going to think that the team that you had today is a team that you can just create every year. And I'm not really young, and I'm telling you, it's not easy, and you can't get that every year." And I said, "Thank you for bringing me down today." But he was exactly right, that mixture was just so extraordinary, that group of kids. And when you look at who those players have become since we competed for a national championship, Stacey Dales, lengthy career at ESPN, NFL broadcaster still to this day. Kaiten Hill is a practicing OBGYN. Stephanie Simon is an entrepreneur who has been all across the world. Jamie Talbert owns her own physical therapy clinic. Shannon Selman is a teacher right now and has an orphanage in Liberia, And you just go through the list of the things that group of kids has accomplished. Well, no wonder we were a really good basketball team. There was substance in those people, in those jerseys. And so I think I've used all our time talking about that one team, but obviously the 2009 team that went to the Final Four with the Paris Twins, the 2010 team that I referenced early, remarkable basketball teams.
Well, Sherri, we have run out of time. Do you have time quickly to tell us what's next for your resume?
There's a bunch of stuff I want to do. I don't know that any of them would be categorized as jobs. I want to read. I want to write. I want to work in my garden. I want to play tennis. I want to rock my brand new grandbaby. I got a lot of stuff that I want to do, but I'm sure that there will be things professionally that I will want to do after I take a bit of a break. But right now, I'm just really excited about spending some time with my family and having control of my own schedule every day. I feel very, very blessed to have been on this remarkable ride made possible by a whole host of incredible people.
Sherri Coale, the outgoing head women's basketball coach at Oklahoma. Sherri, thanks for being on The Verdict. And when you figure out what you want to do next, we'll have you back on and you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Sherri.
I appreciate you so much.
Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Our guest on today's show was Sherri Coale.
Yeah, one thing that sticks out in my mind, knowing Sherri for an awful long time, is how generous she is with her time and with her training and experience and help. She's just genuinely a person that helps others when some folks might not. And she's to be credited for that.
More information on her program can be found at Soonersports.com. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. Tell us about a guest you'd like to see by going to that website. Kent and I'll be back next week with another show. We'll see you then.